Dr. Paul Conti.
Paul Conti, MD.
Dr. Paul Conti.
I think often substance abuse is dealt with and thought of as an illness, and in a way the responsibility is kind of taken away. I'm wondering what powers that in people, why there's such a strong synergy between substance abuse and trauma.
Trauma paves the way to substances. So it's our responsibility and for the societies around us that we don't accept the appeal of the short-term soothing.
Intergenerational trauma, so for example, the trauma of the Jewish people and the Holocaust kind of gets passed on.
Children, for example, of Holocaust survivors had higher levels of anxiety, and traumas that are perpetuated during wartime have been seen mostly through a criminal lens. But now that the conception has shifted to say that trauma can affect that person not only for the rest of their lives, but it can affect their children.
I really like the way you just said that it's sort of like an untangling of trauma and substance abuse as well, because these things can get so knotty and messy. But for somebody who doesn't have access to psychedelics, or even, of course, psychedelics is almost like a shortcut where you're still going to be working through the same issues and processes. How do we begin to unpack trauma against substance abuse when they're so synergistic? Because you're engaging in using substances because of trauma, and yet the use of substances is causing trauma, perpetuating it, leading you not to deal with it, etc. Where do you begin, if that makes sense?
Well, I think it's a great question. And the answer is where to begin is different for everyone. Right? I mean, everyone has their story, right? And if we understand the story, then we can understand how to proceed, which the converse, right? If we don't understand, we don't know where to proceed. So the process of inquiry, whether it's a person doing it themselves, doing it with a friend, doing it with a therapist, we have to understand ourselves so we know what thread to pull on. So for example, someone whose trauma and substance use are just so interwoven, right, that it's very, very hard to separate them, may need to start, for example, first with a detox, right? Someone who is drinking and they really can't not drink now, or if they stop drinking, they get very sick, and that can be dangerous, right? People can have seizures, so dangerous things can happen. It might be like, okay, we need to bring a full stop to the process and to the system, and it's medically indicated. Let's get this person detoxed from alcohol, see where it leaves us, right? Or maybe a person is intermittently abusing a substance, and we see there's a pattern of that person having tried very hard not to do that, and that has not worked, right? What happens most of the time in medicine is the person leaves to do the exact same thing again, right? Because here we're spending 15 minutes with patients not paying attention most of the time because the systems don't allow for it. But in a situation like that, maybe we start with the trauma. What is driving the use of the substance? If that person is using excessively but intermittently, why is that, right? Is that before or after exams, for example? Is that whenever there's a stimulus, whenever something reminds them or triggers them of a certain thing that happened in the past? You know, they see war images on the television, or they hear about rape or sexual assault on the radio, right? What is going on in the person that's driving this forward? We have to understand. Many people have presented to me saying that they're alcoholics, right? Which would technically mean they're dependent upon alcohol. And that is not true. Right? They are not alcoholics. I mean, not any of the people I'm telling you about, the subset. They are abusing alcohol when they are triggered in a certain way. So then the empowerment there, the agency, the responsibility is understand yourself. Understand there's a difference between dependence on alcohol and reflexively, impulsively using alcohol as a way to avoid some thoughts or feelings inside. Let's understand what the thoughts and feelings are inside so that we help you not use alcohol, right? I mean, in so many ways, it is just common sense. And a lot of medical practice, our helping disciplines, psychology, clinical social work, I mean, a lot of what we do does not incorporate common sense into it. So if we have some knowledge and we use common sense, well, we will solve many problems, because would want to hear your story or another person's story. Let's talk about you and your story, so we decide what thread to pull on first in you. And we decide what we might do second or third. What are our backup plans? Maybe we do two things at once. Maybe we enlist other people. But if we understand, we're going to have a route of approach. And if we don't understand, we're not going to, which often leads to a random route of approach and leaves the person worse off than they were before.
I mean, thank you, Dr. Paul, first of all, for your time. And as we come towards the end of this podcast, I wanted to reframe the question of where to begin.
Yes.
As a concluding thought, what would you tell someone who's just watched this podcast, maybe doesn't have the money to pay for weekly therapy, which can, especially in America, be extremely expensive?
Yes.
What can a person now go off and do as a first step? Let's say that it's not a substance abuse related issue. Imagine they're going through a very, very bad breakup and they've got extreme trauma from the toxicity of that breakup. Should they now go away and meditate? Should they now go away and exercise? What would you recommend as a first step?
Well, so the person has to be able to stop and think about themselves. So if you can be in a place of peace where you can avoid the thousands of thoughts that want to ping around in our heads and the worries and the fears and whatever goes on inside of us, if you can find a quiet place inside of you and outside of you to reflect, you find that however it is that you find it. For one person, it may be meditation. Another person may need to go for a hike. A third person may find that after exercising. Someone else may watch something silly and mindless that just makes them laugh a little bit on television. Whatever it is, like, you've got to do what it is that gets you into a place where you can stop and think about yourself from that place of compassionate curiosity. Like, what is really going on in me? Why is this breakup going poorly? Is it going poorly because, I've been through 7 bad breakups. They've all gone poorly in the same way. And the commonality is that I'm the person who's been there for all 7, right? Is it me? Is it a relationship just not going well, but I can't leave a relationship without having to make, a huge conflict so I can say, oh, that's a bad person, then that lets me leave? Maybe I'm doing that, right? Maybe I'm choosing partners who aren't faithful, who aren't super interested in me because I don't feel great about myself. Whatever is going on, like, let me stop and think about myself and think about my behaviors today. Am I looking to go home and get in another argument with that person? Right? Could I handle that differently? Right? How could I take stock of what's going on inside of me and approach the breakup differently? Have a different conversation, right? Maybe we're not bad people. We're just not the right people for one another. Okay, maybe one of us is abusive. Let's look at that. If it's me, I really need to get myself some help. Or if I drive away good people, I need to get myself some help. But none of this is understood. A lot of what we do is we run through life as if, imagine you're running forward as fast as you can, and someone is running next to you who runs faster than you. And that person has their hand in the small of your back and is pushing you forward. So if you don't keep going, you're going to fall face flat forward. And what an awful feeling that is. And this is how life is for so many of us. So many people are struggling to keep their heads above water, to make ends meet, to have enough money in the bank, or to be ready for that next exam, or they're so fearful because someone around them is sick, or there's so much going on. And we can't live life that way. If we live life that way, we're not going to make good decisions. So we need to slow things down. We need to be able to stop and reflect so that hand isn't pushing us in the small of the back and we're just trying to go forward, and maybe we run into a minefield, right? Or we run into a place that's even just less healthier than where we could have gone. So we have to slow down and find some peace in here to think about, what is going on in me? Why is it going on in me? What am I doing today? How could I make 1 or 2 even small different decisions today? How can I leverage those wins forward? And we can do this. The clinic here at Pacific Premier Group, where we are not an unhappy place. People come to us with trauma, and they often come to us with difficult issues, and they come to us feeling sad or upset. I mean, not always, but that's often how people approach mental health. It's how I felt when I went to get mental health treatment, but it does not have to stay that way. But it doesn't have to be that way. People leave a lot better than they came. And the world around us offers us this opportunity if we have a better understanding. How do our brains work? How do our minds within our brains work? How does that affect back and forth with our bodies, right? How does it affect our decisions, our mood, anxiety, behavioral choices? There's so much to be gained. And through that insight, knowledge is power. I say we are in the business of empowerment here. I am in the business of empowerment. My book is about empowerment. We can empower ourselves, and we can do it even if we don't have a whole lot of time. There are resources, my book just being one of them. We can help ourselves, but not if we're rushing forward in it with a sense of fear and desperation.
Ever shown up to the beach with a big bush, getting rejected left, right and centre, so you have to walk away with your pubes between your legs? Then get yourself a Manscaped and rule the beach. Wear your shorts with no shame. Get the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra now with a discount code LOAF to get a full 20% off, so that your baguette leaves no crumbs.
Hey guys, hope you enjoyed the clip from our interview with Dr. Paul Conti. Drop a like and subscribe for more content. If you have any thoughts, leave a comment down below. If you'd like to check out the full interview, you can click right here. Stay tuned for more.